Brothers and sisters in Christ, grace and peace to you from God our Father and from our Lord and Savior Jesus the Christ. Amen. It is a common trope in a certain kind of movie, in movies about high schoolers mostly, where you have the young boy or the young girl going into the high school for the first time. It's their first day there, and they got their tray, and they got their rectangle of pizza, and their carton of milk, and their thing of canned peaches, and they walk through the lunchroom. And everywhere they look, they just have cold stares. If anybody's looking at them at all. They go by the popular kids, they go by the jocks, they go by the theater group, they go by the nerds, and nobody's got a space for them. Nobody looks up, or if they do look up, it's just stony-faced. And so one of them, even one of the movies that I remember seeing, they actually just keep walking, they go into the bathroom, and they sit in one of the stalls there, and they eat their lunch alone. And we see this scene a lot in these kinds of movies partly because a lot of us have experienced that. We've had that moment. Maybe it's not the school lunchroom, but we've gone into some kind of system and we're the stranger and we feel so out of place and no one talks to us and it just feels awful. We've experienced this. Most of us, if not all of us, we've either experienced the moment or we fear the moment. The moment when we're invisible, when we're not known, when we just feel completely like the stranger. And it's hard, and it hurts. There's, among the things that we need food to eat, and water to drink, and we need shelter, and we need air to breathe. And beyond those things, we need people to see us. I mean, that's a human need, to be known. And that's why if you've ever worked with kids, as I did when I worked at camp, almost every time you'd have a group of kids, you'd have a handful who just couldn't behave. And the reason they couldn't behave is because negative attention was better than being invisible. They'd prefer to be yelled at or to have their privileges taken away or to be punished in other ways than to be ignored. It felt better to have that negative attention than to just feel like you didn't exist. We need that. Now the hard part is, getting to be known is hard. It's risky. It's dangerous. Every step of the way, when you try to have someone know you, can be an opportunity for rejection. I mean, even that first time when you meet somebody for the first place, the most shallow possible judgments, they look at your face and they might say, nah, that hurts. It hurts when somebody looks at you and say, for whatever reason, they just have no interest in being with you. That rejection is painful. But then as you keep going along that relationship, every stage can hurt. They find out that your jokes aren't all that funny. And they say, no thanks. They find out, what you look like when you wake up in the morning. And they say, no thanks. They find out that you can be ornery sometimes, that you can be timid in the weirdest possible situations. They find out that you don't have the kind of ambition that they do. Whatever it is that they keep deeper and deeper. They find out the things you're frightened of. They find out the things you're ashamed of. And they say, no thanks. And they move away. And that hurts. And so a lot of times we just hide. We put up walls. I think part of the reason why Facebook is so popular is it's a way to hide. We can just show our highlights. Just show our highlight reel and nothing else. Everything else we can keep just to ourselves. But oh, how powerful it is when you find someone that goes deep, goes all the way down to the bottom and sees what you're ashamed of, sees what you're frightened of, sees your longings of your heart, see the things that you grieve, and says yes all along the way. When you have that spouse that you're going the distance with, that is life-changing. When you have that deep friendship, that friendship that you know will last until the end. Or it could be with a family member, a brother or a sister, someone that is just deep with you. They have seen you at your worst and they're still right next to you. That is powerful. That is something that we all need desperately in our lives. Which brings us to the gospel. Jesus sits down by this woman, and there is very little conversation before Jesus gets to the very heart of what this woman would try to hide from the world. I mean, we don't know, and if you go back and read the commentaries over the last thousands of years, they have all kinds of speculation of what's going on with this woman, why she has 5 husbands and is not married to the six. We don't really know. If you ask like 200 years ago, is because the woman was morally suspect in some way, maybe a prostitute. They would oftentimes blame her. Now the modern more retelling is you kind of blame the system and you say, well, it's because this oppressive patriarchy is kind of squeezing her. And however you look at it, what we do know is that this woman felt this deep shame about this is the kind of thing she would hide from a stranger, from anybody, until as far as she could, because as soon as she tells them that she's had 5 husbands and she's now living with the 6th, she knows the look on their face. At best, they would pity her. At best, the look would be, you are now a tragedy. You are now something that I can maybe help fix. And at worst, of course, is they'd shrug their shoulders and say, I want nothing to do with you. And they would walk away. So in Jesus' first thing almost that they talk about, when he says to her, you have had 5 husbands and you're not living with your 6th. You can just imagine that spike of anxiety. Here it is, the thing she's been trying to hide. But Jesus doesn't reject her. Jesus doesn't turn his back. He doesn't pity her any more than I think he pities any of us. Instead, Jesus says, have this living water, have this place in the kingdom of God. Jesus sees her for exactly who she is. He knows her more deeply than she knows herself, and he loves her. And there is nothing more powerful on this earth than that. That changes everything. That transforms lives. That makes the whole world a different place when you are seen and known and loved, particularly by the creator of the universe. Now, I've recently seen this. I've recently heard a story about this. One of the things I do, besides preaching here occasionally, is I help people write books. I'm helping this man, and it's going to be confidential still, but he was a drug dealer about 10 years ago. And he was a big-time drug dealer in a small town. And in this small town, in about a 50-mile radius, he was the guy you would go to for meth. And he got it from a foreign country, and it came to him. It was high quality, and everybody would come to him all around the area until he was caught by the police. They knocked down his door. He was put in jail for a couple nights, got out on bail. And when he was out on bail, he had about 2 months before he went to prison for a while. And in that 2 months, he tried desperately to get cleaned up. He knew he couldn't sell anymore because the police were watching him. He was going to go to prison for it. So he also, though, just didn't want to use. He wanted to be clean. He wanted to be free from the addiction. But no matter what he tried, he couldn't get free of it. In fact, as he would try those 2 months, it felt like every time he would try to give up, he would just start using more. And actually even got a new addiction. He started drinking too. It was not working. He couldn't get free of it until one night he felt this panic. And it was a panic attack, but it was also worse because he was on meth, and so it just kind of spikes your paranoia and spikes your mind running even faster than it usually does. And he could not sit still, and he just could not feel like the world was falling apart underneath him. It felt like earthquakes were around him. He just had this terror from top to bottom. Well, he also had this old cross that he had. And on this cross was etched Psalm 23. He grew up going to church. It was given to him out of confirmation, something like that. He had it forever. And he held onto that cross. And the wood, he talks about, dug into his skin, how tightly he held it. And it brought him some comfort, just this cross with Psalm 23 on it. And he kept reading, almost like a mantra, almost like a meditative voice. He kept reading, yes, though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thy rod and thy staff will comfort me. And it's that rod and thy staff. 2 o'clock in the morning, where this says to him, again, he's on drugs, you're going to give that. It says to him, he's got to go to church. And not on Sunday, but right then. So he gets out of his car and he drives across town to the church he grew up in, and he parked across the street, and he sits there for a while gripping that cross thinking, all right, I'm going crazy. And he acknowledges that a bunch of times, and then he thinks, but this is what I think I need to do. So he gets out of his car, he goes over, and the church is unlocked. He walks into the narthex, dead quiet, dark, no one around, until he hears these footsteps coming from this corridor. And he walks around the corner, and he looks down, and there's this hooded figure coming towards him. And again, the man's on drugs, but in his head, what he sees there is his addiction. He sees the drug itself personified, that darkness and shadow that he has been in for 6 years, was standing there coming towards him, and he cried out to God, and the shadow disappeared. And he went into the back of the sanctuary, and he sat down, and at the top of this church, just like what you guys have, the cross kind of hanging out down over the altar, and there's a light on it, and he sat there and he prayed for the first time in 10 years. Now, all of the stuff up to this, it might be mystical, spiritual warfare going on. It might also just be the crazed fever dream of someone on drugs. I don't know, but this part I know is real. He prayed to Jesus, and he told God everything that he could about the last 6 years of his life. About the ache, about the shadow, about the things that he had done, about the poison that he had released into his community, and he just emptied himself of all of that darkness. And he felt like in that moment, the creator of the universe saw him and knew him deeper than he knew himself and loved him. Didn't spit him out like he deserved, but loved him. After that day, he has not spent about 10 years, and he is not taken again. He went to prison for a while, and he's an upstanding member of society. He's got a good job. He had to go through a grind. It took years for him to get his brain back, the chemistry working again, and for him to be able to hold down a good job again. But he's doing great. And the way he got through that grind is understanding that God knows him and loves him. He's not alone in this fight. He's not alone in this universe, but he is loved and seen and known by the one who made him. Dear friends in Christ, Jesus sees you. You're not alone. And he knows you more deeply and intimately than you know yourself. And he doesn't spit you out. He doesn't turn his back. But he loves you more profoundly than you could ever imagine.